So today I want to talk about workers' rights in Japan, and the reason for that is because recently I was looking up, I saw a video somewhere on YouTube, and someone mentioned how there's 30 basic human rights that were put out by the United Nations, and they had never heard of them. And to be honest, I had never heard of them either. So I looked them up, and I read through them, and then I started thinking, hmm, are there basic rights for workers in Japan? And I wonder what they are. And I wonder if they're different for me as a foreigner living in Japan than they are for actual Japanese people. And like I sort of had some basic ideas of what rights in Japan were for workers, but I had never actually researched it. And there's been some things at work lately, at my work, that I don't know, I've worked there for quite a while before taking a break for a year, and I was always a little uncomfortable with the way certain things were run, but I just kind of let it go because I enjoyed the job. But because recently my job has been sort of way more stressful than it needs to be, I've started thinking about this again. So I decided to look it up. So before we jump into those, why don't we just quickly look at those universal human rights that really everyone should know. These are things that everyone's supposed to have. We're all supposed to have these human rights no matter where we're living in the world. So I'm going to pop those up on screen. Boom. And that's this. So anyway, basic human rights, right? Number 1, let's zoom in a little bit on this. We are all born free and equal. That's the number 1 right. Number 2 is don't discriminate. Number 3, the right to life. So obviously, people can't kill us just randomly because they want to. No slavery. It's a no-brainer. No torture. Another no-brainer, although America seems to have some trouble with that one. You have rights no matter where you go, so whether you're in Japan, Thailand, India, doesn't matter. America, your human rights are protected by law. Number 8. Number 9 is no unfair detainment. America has a hard time with that one too. The right to trial. We're always innocent till proven guilty. The right to privacy, freedom to move, the right to seek a safe place to live, the right to a nationality. Do people, I guess some minority groups in certain countries do have problems with the right to nationality. Like Myanmar and stuff, right? Anyway, number 16, marriage and family. You have the right to have marriage and family. Number 18, freedom of thought. Number 19, freedom of expression. Number 20, the right to public assembly. Number 21, the right to democracy. Social security, workers' rights. The right to play. Food and shelter for all. The right to education. Copyright. A fair and free world. This one's a little tougher, I think. Responsibility. We all have a duty to other people, and we should protect their rights and freedoms. And no one can take away your human rights. So those are the basic 30 human rights that everyone has, apparently, decided by the United Nations. And that's what got me thinking about workers' rights in Japan. So, I did a little, digging, and I found this website, and I actually found a lot of other things. Like, there's a lot. Every single law in Japan... Yes. Countryside Limbo says, I think America would have about a C- about now for that list. I agree. C- at the best. That's kind of sad, isn't it? I feel like even when I was younger, we would have had at least like a B. But nowadays, I don't know. Japan is actually pretty good on the basic rights of like all people. Than 30, I think. Maybe? I don't know. But as far as workers' rights go, they don't do so well there. So, I found this thing called the Foreign Workers Handbook, which is basically a boiled down list of the actual laws. And I also found that all of the laws in Japan for work are actually translated into English as well. So, I'll bring those up a little bit later. I actually read through all of those, and there was a lot of interesting stuff that I don't think anyone in Japan, Japanese people, know. And they certainly don't take it seriously. And most people who are not Japanese, who I know who work here, some of them know it, but people don't realize that it's like the law and it's the right, and this is what they should be given. So let's just go over some of these basic rights that we have in Japan working here. And I'm going to talk about times when I was taken advantage of and not basically given these rights, which was basically from day one when I started working here, which is too bad. But I'd love to hear your guys' stories too. We'll have some time for that on each little point. So the first is Labor contracts. That's the first part of the Foreign Workers Handbook. There's a link in the description if you want to follow along, or if you're having a hard time seeing this on screen. I'll zoom in a little bit. Let's just see if you can see that. Yeah, it should be fine. Okay. So, number 1, application of labor laws and regulation to foreign nationals. So, Japanese labor laws apply to everyone. Japanese people, foreigners, whatever. I always sort of had an assumption that foreign workers in Japan had more rights than Japanese workers, because that's sort of how it feels. I know as far as schools go, especially like in my case, I work at a kindergarten. So I've only heard horror stories about Japan's labor experiences. Yes, there's some good companies too, and some try really hard, I think, but there's a lot of horror stories too. So I'd love to hear from anyone watching their horror stories as well. So I just always assumed that foreigners sort of had a higher standard of basic rights, but according to this, basically, the rights are the same no matter whether you're Japanese or not. But just an example of how this is not applied to Japanese people, I work at a kindergarten, and my salary it's not bad. In fact, it's probably double what the normal teachers at the kindergarten are making per month. They also get bonuses, which I don't get, but I just assumed that was because of the law, that we were supposed to get, a certain amount, and they don't have that law. But it's kind of ridiculous. Like, they barely receive a working wage at the school. I make enough to get by fairly comfortably in Japan, and I think not all, but a lot of foreign workers make out pretty well as well. I used to hear, and someone can correct me if I'm wrong here, that the minimum for a foreign labor in Japan was 250,000 yen per month, which is about $400 per month. I thought that was the minimum. I heard. I didn't see that anywhere in these laws, but I don't know. That's what I heard, and that seems to be the average salary for people starting out here. Need a drink of water. But Japanese people starting out, they're lucky if they get 200,000. Like, really lucky. But they get bonuses, like, which month's worth of salary at one time, so that's a whole nother thing. But anyway, the principles of labor contracts. So in the past, there have been many problems, such as wages not being paid as promised, or a penalty being deducted from wages on retirement. So to prevent these troubles, they've made laws. So working conditions must be stated clearly by the employer. Not sure about that. Yeah, I'm not sure either. I have to look into that a little more. But when a labor contract is drawn up, they need to clearly state the working conditions, the employer. The following matter shall be written and handed to the employee. The period of the labor contract, the working place and job duties, the existence of overtime work, the time at which work begins and at which work ends, breaks, ooh, this is a big one, days off and holiday and leave, the amount of wages, the method of computation and payment, the date of closing accounts and of payment, matters pertaining to retirement. Now, not many foreign workers end up staying here until retirement, so that's rarely in our contracts. Whether it should be or not, I don't know. But jumping right back up to the top, before we even start, I know Yuki, my girlfriend, she started working at a... Yeah, clearly, yeah, right. Right. So she started working recently at a new job here in Japan, and they never gave her a contract. She kept asking for one, and they're like, no, we'll show it to you when your first 3 months are up and whatnot. So they never even, they lied to her about how much she was going to be making when she started, gave her less, and they were like, oh, you're going to get money for an apartment as well. Like, a lot of companies give out a monthly, like, a stipend for your apartment. So they were like, yeah, you're going to get that, you're going to get bonuses. And then she started, and they're like, no, that's not happening. And no, you're not getting bonuses either. And your salary is actually less than probably what you thought. And that happens a lot here. Like, so much. And it's just so shady and illegal. But most people here, they don't do anything about it. So that's very unfortunate. And it's hard, like, even if they did do something, like, because the people above them are above them, they'll kind of just laugh at them and be like, go back to work. So it's an unfortunate situation. And one reason that she really didn't want to come back to Japan, and I feel kind of bad that I kind of made her come back to Japan, but so yeah, working conditions in contracts, even for me, have been severely understated. Like, every job I've had, it basically was just like, okay, you're gonna do this every day, and it ended up being so many more responsibilities than were stated in the contract, and so much more work day to day than they said. They rarely mention that you need to do overtime work. It might say you might, but you almost always do, and they rarely pay for it. So, yeah, that's great. So recently, Lawyer Up, yeah, Lawyer Up is something I've actually considered doing recently, just possibly. I decided recently to go in and talk to my company about some of this stuff, and we'll see how that goes. Was a very recent conversation, and one of the reasons I've want to talk about this a little more and see what other people are experiencing, because it's an exhausting situation. And if I basically decided, if I don't get what I'm requesting, basically much more clear statements in the contract, much more clear breaks and overtime statements and stuff like that, then lawyers probably a good idea. But I know in America, lawyers are easy to get, not too expensive, and they actually get stuff done. I know nothing about lawyers here, so we'll see. Yuki says right over here that they're super expensive, so, but it depends on the case. But I don't know, it's always a possibility. You can also go to the Department of Labor, and they'll sometimes do things for you. But acquaintance of mine went there, and they basically did nothing for him, so we'll see. Right in here it says that they need to clearly state breaks. I don't have any breaks at work. That's another issue we'll get to later. And they don't write them there, and that's totally illegal. And they actually got in trouble for it recently. And now everyone at my work is, should I say this? Nobody knows where I work. It's fine. Everyone at my work lies that they take a break every day on their little timesheets. I don't, but that's another story. So anyway, the employee, this is so funny. The employee may immediately cancel the labor contract if the working conditions as clearly stated differ from the actual fact. So basically, every person I know living and working in Japan, you can just cancel your contracts right now. They're void because either they're illegal or they're not stated clearly. Countryside Limbo says, same as America. No breaks exist anywhere. Really? Is that true?
They pay for him, right?
No, not necessarily. But they pay you, so say you take no breaks in the States, right? But do you work 9 hours then and not take a break, or do you work 8 hours without a break? I'm curious to hear about that. Here, you would work 9 hours, no break, and you wouldn't get paid for the extra hour, definitely. So it's basically working an hour of overtime every day. Just volunteering, not getting paid for it. That's what I do. So anyway. Yeah, so therefore it is advisable for the employee to obtain a written contract. Now that is something that foreign workers in Japan are pretty good, in a good situation with. The written contracts do come in, whether they're good or not, another story. Japanese people often get oral ones, and they're a joke. So anyway, yeah. A contract violating the labor standards law, which I'll bring up later. I've got that right here, the labor standards law in English. If it violates any of it, it's invalid. So if you're watching this video because you're not sure whether your workers' rights are being followed, you can probably just assume that your contract is invalid. If your contract is great, I'd love to hear about that too, because maybe I'll come work for your company someday. Alright, so period of contract. This one's funny. Most people working in Japan get a year-long contract. That's the average. Most people don't stay here for more than 1 year because they come thinking, Japan, I can't wait to work here, and then they actually work here. And the reality is that it's not what you expected in most places. I came here for 1 year and then just ended up staying for 5.5 because I loved it so much. Like the country itself, the people, the culture, the language, my friends, and the city I live in. I loved all that. My work, take it or leave it. My second job as a kindergarten teacher, I ended up loving. And that kept me here even longer. But most people come and they get like a crappy eikaiwa job or something where they end up working, teaching 30 or 40 classes a week, and they're just exhausted at the end of every week, and it's just terrible, and they don't actually get to go and do any of the things they were dreaming of when they came to Japan, so they're gone in a year. Other people are ALTs, and it can be a pretty soul-sucking job because it's kind of boring. A lot of times there's not much to do and little to no responsibility. I kind of envy them sometimes, but they often don't last long either. So anyway, that's sort of a precursor to this period of contract thing. Labor contracts shall be made for a period of no longer than 3 years, except for those without a definite period. However, a contract may exceed 3 years when the period for completing a specific project is determined. Okay. It's also permissible to draw up a contract for up to 5 years for highly specialized cases, so like engineers and stuff, I imagine. ALT pay is garbage unless you work for the city directly, or even the prefecture directly. They pay pretty well, relatively well. At least they did like 5 years ago when a few of my friends joined there, and they continue to pay well. But working for any like sub companies, like companies that send you out, Jet Program's not good anymore, is it? It used to be pretty good, but it keeps going down. Oh, Jet Program is decent. Okay. Yeah, it used to be even better, but it can be hard to get into the Jet Program, and working for a private company as an ALT is just highly inadvisable. Is that a word? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so most people only get a 1-year contract. My second contract at my current company was 3 years long, and I actually broke it to go become a monk. That's a story for another time. But I came back, and when I came back and went in for the interview, I was offered a 10-year contract or a 30-year contract. That was it. There was no in-betweens. They were like, you want 10 years? We want you to stay here forever. And at the time, I took it as like a compliment, and I was really sort of excited about it because I did like the company. I did like the company, and I figured I would want to be in the city for a long time, so I agreed to 10 years because I figured I was going to be here that long anyway. I came back again, so I might as well. I figured. And then the company has changed a lot while I was gone. So 10 years, I'm thinking. Ooh. Turns out 10 years is, according to this, illegal, and my contract is invalid. But it's a story for another day. For the moment, I'm happy with it because it's a company where I can actually not necessarily be a kindergarten teacher forever. I can possibly do other things at the office and do other jobs and things like that. So there's actually room for progression, which is very rare for foreigners in Japan. So I'm happy about that. But anyway, careful with your contracts. If people try and get you to stay longer, harass you into staying longer or signing a longer contract, you don't need to sign more than 3 years. You don't need to sign any more than you want to. So, stating reasons for dismissal. In concluding a labor contract, employees must clearly state reason for dismissal in writing. I've never been dismissed from anything, and I don't know anyone who has. I've heard stories about it, and I've read horror stories of people who like asked for a raise and were fired and had their doors locked, like the doors to their apartment, the locks changed on them with their stuff inside and stuff like that. There's horror stories, and I think there's one on this website that I'm reading right now where they threatened to kill the guy, and yeah, it was crazy. But anyway, I don't know much about this. If anyone in chat, audio going echoing. Okay, hold on. How's that? Is that any better? I'm going echoey. Sorry about that. I'm having all kinds of technical difficulties today. Any better? Turn the gain down. Nope. Weird. Let's just turn this music off. Don't really need that. There's also a ambulance going by, as there always is whenever I'm trying to make a video. Let's test this out. How's it sound on my end? It's terrible. Interesting. Okay. It's like, I feel like, hold on. Sounds. Let's turn off this one. Disable. Disable. How's that? Still bad? We plugged it in. Let's see how that sounds. Anyone? I wonder if my camera mic is coming in or something. That's better. Alright, sorry about that. Yeah, or Japan is attacking me for exposing workers' rights. Alright, we're back in business. That's the phrase I'm looking for. Back in business. So I was just talking about how I don't have anything helpful about stating reasons for dismissal. I've never been dismissed and I don't know anyone who has. But I have heard horror stories like people getting locked out of their apartments because they changed the locks because they asked for a raise and then fired them without saying anything. I don't think it happens too much, but it has happened, so it's something to think about. Ban on predetermined indemnity. An employer cannot make a contract which fixes in advance. Japan doesn't want its secrets exposed. Yeah. I hope that's not it. I could be in trouble. An employer cannot make a contract which fixes in advance either a sum payable to the employee for a breach of contract or an amount of indemnity for damages. So a company can't say, if you break something at work, you have to pay $5,000. Like, they can't do that. They can, if you scroll down, make you pay for something you break or ruin, but it'll be determined by, whatever it actually was. Ban on offsets against advances. An employer should not offset monthly wages against advances of credit made as a condition for work. I don't actually know what that means, but yeah, there's that. Ban on compulsory savings. So companies can't make you put money into their equivalent of 401ks, which they can't force you to. You can, but they can't force you to. For Americans, it's not really an issue anyway because it's a bad idea to put money into those kind of pension services here because of our tax laws. Basically, you don't want to invest in Japan if you're living here as an American. So this isn't a big deal for us. Rules of employment. The rules of employment stipulate working conditions and office regulations. Any company which employs 10 or more workers on a steady basis must provide such rules of employment and submit them to the Labor Standards Inspection Office. The company is also required to make these regulations known to the employees. It is therefore desirable for employers to do so in a language that their employees understand. If they do not understand Japanese, rules of employment can't infringe on any law, yada, yada, yada. I don't think I ever got these. I might have gotten a copy in Japanese, but rules of employment in Japanese. My Japanese is good, but my reading probably isn't up to law level. So, I don't know. I'm very curious what my company's rules of employment are. Maybe I'll ask for them next week. Has anyone here ever received their rules of employment? Dan, did you ever get your rules of employment sent to you? Yuki's saying that she never received her rules of employment. Never. She's never at any company, correct? She's had multiple jobs and never has she ever received rules of employment. So here are the items that belong on our rules of employment. So maybe after Dan has never received them either. Let's see what's on them. The following items must be stated in the rules of employment. Matters pertaining to the time at which work begins. Oh, I guess that's in there. And at which work ends, rest periods, rest days, and leave, and matters pertaining to the change in shifts, matters pertaining to the methods of determination, computation, and payment of wages, excluding extraordinary wages, the date of closing accounts of payment, and increases in wages. Ooh, I've never seen that. Matters pertaining to retirement. Ah, this is that earlier thing, right? Others are in the event that there are stipulations for retirement, blah, blah, blah. We don't really get those anyway. So I guess if this is all that goes on them, then I guess that's in my contract, right? So that's good. Yuki never received that for this job, so that's not good. But she has no idea how her payment is calculated. She needs to quit that job as soon as possible. But she does cool things there, so it's kind of like a mix. Maybe some, says Dan. Yeah, you probably got like what your rest days are or whatever. But certainly not how your wages are determined, I imagine, or what they apply to. I don't receive breaks. I'm supposed to now, but it's certainly not written in my contract. So anyway, we talked about that. Wages. Principles of payment of wages. In the labor standards law, wage means the wage, salary, allowance, bonus, and every other payment to the employer from the employer as remuneration for labor, regardless of the name by which each such payment may be called. Blah, blah, blah. They must state clearly everything regarding the wages. Wages must be paid in cash, except in cases provided for the law by ordinance or by union agreement. I assume by cash they mean putting in your bank is fine as well. I think they mean they can't pay you with like stocks or Bitcoin. I'd be fine with that. Wages must be paid directly to the employees themselves. That's usually okay. Wages must be paid in full. That's partial deductions may not be permitted with the exception of taxes, social insurance premiums, and others according to the written agreement. Wages must be paid at least once a month on a definite date, except extraordinary wages such as bonus, etc. Yeah. So I've never had any problems with this, but there are companies in my city where foreign employees weren't paid. They weren't paid. It would come to the end of the month, the company would be broke, and they'd be like, sorry, we can't pay you this month. We'll pay you next month. And they didn't. And that was a mess. And that company is still in business. I don't know how that works. Has anyone here ever had issues with that? Not being paid on time? Yuki, have you ever had issues? You've always been paid on time, right? That's good. So this one isn't too often. Yeah, I haven't heard that, yo. I have heard that too. Yeah. Yeah, it happens. Guarantee of wages and minimum wages. As wages are the most important matter for employees' life. That and working hours. The labor standards law stipulates guaranteed payment as follows. In the event of suspension of business for reasons attributable to the employer should pay an allowance equal to at least 60% of the employee's average wage. All right, I'm gonna sort of skip through these because we've been going for a while. The employer cannot hire an employee for less than the minimum wage. That hasn't been a problem for me. It's not really too much of an issue, but the minimum wage is kind of a joke. 719 yen per hour. I guess that's not much better than America, or not much worse than America, but you know, that minimum wage is also a joke. So anyway. Decreases in wages as sanctions. Now this happens to people here. Not too often to foreigners, but a company may decrease wages as a sanction in order to maintain discipline at the firm. This is different from deducting wages which amount is according to the hours of lateness or absence. The company should state the details about decreases blah 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 blah. A single deduction shall not exceed 50% of the daily average wage. That's huge. They can deduct 50%. But it shall not exceed 10% of the total wages for a single pay period. That's still harsh. I've never experienced that or heard of anyone experiencing that, so probably not something to worry about. Please let me know in the comments or in the chat if you have experienced that. If companies go bankrupt and the wages haven't been paid, there's a system which the government pays the employees. So this does happen, especially with like shady eikaiwas and that just started by a random dude who decided he wants to leave Japan because he used all the money or whatever. It happens quite a bit. Don't join a company that isn't fairly well established. It's just not worth it. So I'm going to skip through here. Unpaid wages subject to replacement payment. Skip through here. Please read through this if you get a chance, if you have any issues. There's annual pay. I don't think we ever have to deal with that. But working hours, this is the big one. This is the one that I think people all over Japan have an issue with. I know Japanese people, despite it being the law, I don't think anyone works 40 hours a week except for maybe part-time working mothers. Right? Part-time working mothers. Maybe they work 40 hours a week. It's insane. She's nodding over here. Yeah, that's about it. So the legal working hours per week in Japan, it's 40 hours. 40. Same as America. I was sure it was more for years, but I thought it might be 40, and lo and behold, it's 40. I checked in the actual law too, which is right here, sort of hard to see. It's 40 hours. So the labor standards law stipulates that an employer shall not make an employee work more than 8 hours per day. The fixed working hours of each firm shall not be longer than the legal hours. However, up to and including 44 hours of work per week are allowed in special cases, but nothing we'd be doing. Commerce, cinema, theater, health and sanitation, service, and amusement. I don't see education. Where there are fewer, wait for it, where there are fewer than 9 regular employees in the company or business. So if it's a theater with more than 10. Japan is the overworking capital of the world. Yes. I imagine there's some other Asian companies that give them a run for their money. China comes to mind. But I don't know, maybe not. People work just insane hours. It's getting better. It is. Even my company tries to make people go home at 5:30 every day. But they still bring work home. They come in at like 7:30 in the morning, so they're still at work for 10, 11 hours, plus working for at least an hour at home every day. And they basically teach little kids. Yeah. So anyway, if the theater has more than 9 workers, they still can only work 40 hours a week because they shouldn't have to work more than that. Anyway, many kinds of modified working hour systems exist. We can take a look at those down below. Let's just look at this line really quick. With regards to breaks, it stipulates that an employer shall provide employees with at least 45 minutes of break time when they work over 6 hours, and 1 hour of break time when it's over 8. So basically 8 and over. So the Department of Labor actually came into my company last year before I came back and found that everyone, without fail, was working at least 9 to 10 hours without any break, like none, 0. And it's a rough job. Not rough. It is rough, but it's exhausting. And they're like, you have to implement break time or you're going to get fined, basically. So it's really hard to take a break at our job because we don't have enough people and there's so much work to be done. And it's childcare, so that's another thing. But there's times when the kids aren't there. Long story. Anyway, people started trying in the beginning and then it was a little difficult, so they just gave up, but they still have to write that they took an hour break every day. I don't do that, and it makes me a little annoyed. So I recently asked to either that for them to decide times of day every day when I can take a break and write it in my contract, or to let me go home early. I second that, yeah. Or to let me go home early, or to let me decide my working hours, and that's one of the types of schedules below. So-called overtime work and work on holidays. So-called a 36 agreement, a written agreement about overtime and work on holidays, should be concluded between an employer and employees and submitted to the Labor Standards Inspection Office. I doubt that was done for me, or you, or anyone here watching. When the employer wants to extend working hours or have an employee work on holidays. Definitely doesn't happen. Wow, my state's labor laws has nothing on breaks. Really? It says it's based on whatever your employer deems as a necessary break. Well, it's leaving it in the employee. I thought you were saying they're leaving it in the employer's hands. Hi, Flower Blossom. Thanks for joining this. I'm over here complaining about workers' rights in Japan. The employer. Yeah, that's not right. They get to decide whether or not you get a break. Or if it's necessary. What company is going to decide it's necessary unless they're really nice? It's ridiculous. It annoys me. So anyway, it is required here. So the workers' rights here are actually really good. Just no company follows them. What do you know? Anyway, they're also supposed to extend written reasons for why they want people to work overtime or on holidays or, weekends or whatever. They're supposed to extend written reasons to the Labor Department. That has never happened. Guaranteed. Not in my company. The rate of increased wages for overtime work and night work, defined as being during the period between 10 p.m. and 5 a.m., is an increase of at least 25%. The rate for work on holidays is an increase of at least 35%. Nope. An employer is not under obligation to pay increased wages for overtime work if working hours per week during a modified period or a settled period are not over the legal working hours. Blah, 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 blah. So if you work, 12 hours one day, but then you only work 4 hours the next day, it's not considered overtime. That's reasonable. So down somewhere here, there's a chart, but basically, if you work 10 to 5, it's at 10 p.m. to 5 a.m., and it's overtime, you actually have to double that. So it's time and a half, basically. And I have an event at my school, which is actually 18 hours of overtime in one day, one night. It's an event every year. And the company pays everyone that does it 5,000 yen, which is about $50. So I did the math on what they should actually be paying everyone, and it's $500. Literally, each person should be receiving $500 in overtime pay for that event, and they're giving everyone $50. I addressed that at my meeting last week too. We'll see how that goes. If you do not understand the method of calculation of hours and pay, you should ask your company. I did. We'll see what they come back with. So anyway, if you guys don't get breaks, if you're working more than 8 hours a day without a break, and you're working, I don't know, 45 or 40, more than 40 hours a week and not getting paid for it or not being allowed to go home early on different days, you should talk to your company about it, and bring this to them. Bring the actual law, which there's a link in the description of, this is the actual law. Bring that to them and be like, listen, right? This is what you need to give me. And most companies just do it as long as they can get away with it. But as soon as someone goes in and is like, listen, I want my break, or I want what is owed to me, most of them just, they fold really fast. I worked at a eikaiwa for my first 2 years in Japan. And on Saturdays, I was teaching 10 classes in a row without a break. That's a lot. That's 10 hours straight, no breaks, just teaching kids nonstop. It was exhausting. I was miserable every Friday night, like, oh, tomorrow's Saturday, I'm going to die. So I looked up the laws back then, and I realized I need a break. I can't be teaching more than this. If I am, it's overtime. And also, I need a break. This is ridiculous. I wasn't even getting, time to eat. So on Saturdays, so 10 hours straight, 11 hours straight, no time to eat every Saturday, constant moving. It wasn't even like downtime. It was nuts, man. It was the worst year of Saturdays in my life. But anyway, I finally just stood up for myself. I was like, listen, this isn't right. I want a break. They canceled the class or gave it to someone else, and I had my break that week. So they just do it because they can and because you don't complain. As soon as you complain, at least as a foreign worker here, they generally do something about it. At least that's been my experience. I know, once again, there's some horror stories on here, which, I don't know, I've been rambling on for quite a while, but I might go over it if anyone's sticking around in a little bit. So, annual paid leave. An employer shall grant annual paid leave of 10 working days, either consecutive or divided up into portions, to the employee who have been employed continuously for 6 months. I get that. I won't lie. I get 5 days I can take anywhere, and I get throughout the year, probably in total, well over a month off altogether. So I can't complain about my days off. It's not bad. Some ALTs have way better. My friend worked at a private high school, directly through the high school, and he had a month off in the winter, a month off in the spring, and a month and a half off in the summer. So he was off a quarter of the year. Not to mention, he basically didn't have to be there during test times. So I think the guy worked maybe 2/3 of the year at the most, and got paid almost the same as me. That was a great job. I should have taken it. So there are some really, really good jobs here. It's hard to find them. Yeah. So anyway, my days off aren't bad. A lot of people are. And even if you are given those 10 days, most people don't take them. That's the other problem. I would make so many videos if I had that much time off. I know, right? Oh my God, when he had all that time off, he didn't really do much with it. I guess he traveled a bit, but I could do so much if I had 3 months off a year. I'd have no excuses for anything. It'd be so awesome. But anyway. So most people don't take their days off here. I know most foreign people I know working here do. Most people will get off OBOM, which is kind of included in those 10 working days, which is nuts. I don't think a national holiday should be included there. But I know the Japanese teachers at my school, I don't think they get that much. And they're forced to take it within national holidays. So they're not allowed to take it in the middle of the year. because we don't have enough people to cover their classes if they're not there. So it's kind of a miserable situation for them. Here's a missing table. That's lovely. Employees can take annual paid leave whenever they want. However, a company is allowed to change the requested leave date to another period of time if the company's blah 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 blah. That doesn't work at my company. But I guess it is a written agreement. Maternity leave, childcare. I have no experience of this. I know most companies that I've been with are pretty good about maternity leave. Most mothers take at least a year off or more when they are pregnant. Whether they get paid for it is another issue entirely. But they generally do get up to 12 months off. I know Yuki's sister is taking a year off. Yeah, so they're pretty good about that. Paternity leave, on the other hand, there was just an article put out recently. I don't know, some of you guys, if you're on Twitter, you've probably seen it, of some fathers who decided to take paternity leave and it ruined their life, and they're suing their company, I think. But have a look at that if you get a chance. So I'm going to just scroll through here. Family care leave, it's the same thing. Resignation, dismissal. You basically need to give, I think, a month advance notice. In cases where the employee is contracted to work for a specific period of time, he or she should resign when the period of contract expires, of course, and the contract of employment will be terminated. Resignation during the specific contract period is not allowed in principle without any proper unavoidable reason. In cases where the contract prescribes regulations concerning resignation, the employee should follow these. If it is possible that compensation for damages due to non-performance of obligations may be claimed by the company. I've never heard of that happening, but it is possible. An example would be in a case where an employee suddenly quits regardless of regulations concerning everything, whatnot, and the company loses money, blah, blah, blah. I broke my contract, once again, to go become a monk back in 2017. I had 1 year left on my contract, but my class had graduated, the class that I had, so I was going to get a new class, and then my contract would be up, and I would have to decide whether to take them to their graduation one more year or what. So I just decided to cut the contract there. They were fine with it. I found someone to replace me, and that was that. Like, contracts they're not super binding here unless it's written in your contract. Mine, it generally hasn't been. You might lose like a bonus, I think, at the end of the year. A lot of Eikaiwas will give like $1,000 bonus if you finish your contract. If you break it in the middle of the contract, you won't get that. But it's not actually that difficult to break contracts here. No 2 weeks? No, I gave him like 2 months of notice. I gave him 2 months of notice, and I found a replacement, and then I trained that replacement for 4 months. So I worked 4 months into my the third year of my contract, and then they let me leave. So generally, I think it's a month, 30 days here, not 2 weeks. So yeah, there's some laws there. Dismissal is when an employer unilaterally terminates a labor contract with an employer before its predetermined expiration date. The labor standard laws stipulates that dismissal without objective rational reasons and unacceptable by blah 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 blah. You have the right to request written notice. Employers are not allowed to dismiss employees with a fixed period of contract before the contract expires, except for in cases with an unavoidable reason, or when a company goes bankrupt. The company is still responsible for compensation payable to the employee if the unavoidable reason is due to any fault attributed to the employer. Getting fired here is very rare. You need to do something pretty drastic to get fired as a teacher in Japan. They will let almost anything go. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But I've witnessed some truly just useless behavior, and it was never even punished. Like, I worked with a guy who every meeting he was sleeping, and when you would talk to him, he would fall asleep. Like, while you were talking to him, I'd be having a conversation with the guy. I'd be like, hey, how was your day today? Blah blah blah. He'd be like, yeah. And just fall asleep in childcare. He was taking care of children and just falling asleep randomly. I don't even think he was narcoleptic. Like, if he was actually sick, that's fine. But I think if you're narcoleptic and you're applying to be a kindergarten teacher, you should tell someone. But that's besides the point. He ended up quitting in the middle of his contract, but, you won't get fired. With that said, someone that worked for the same company once threw a kid, like literally threw them. And I think they hit a tree or something. I don't know. This is a story I heard. It's total rumor. Well, I mean, it actually happened. I don't know the exact details, but he threw a child and they let him go. But so yeah, just don't throw kids and you should be fine. So just skip through to the end. Termination of consecutive employment. So if they don't have to give you another contract, I don't think, but they need to clearly state why they're not renewing you. And if they're going to terminate your contract, they need to give 30 days prior notice. So yeah, this is an interesting one. This is the last thing I'm going to cover from this, and then I'll think about going over that crazy case that I read about. So you can organize a labor union. Yes, you don't even have to be Japanese. If you want to, if you have at least two people, just you and one other person, you are legally able to organize a labor union who can, maintain and improve working conditions and raise the economic status of the employees. That's what their job can be. So if you've got two people who want to try and make life better for you at your company, you can start a labor union. Dan, I would love to start a union, but since we're not in the same company, I don't think that would work. I think you actually have to be in the same company. It's not like a trade union, I don't think. I think it's actually like a labor union within the company. I'm not sure about that. That'd be fun. The labor union law stipulates that the requirements of a labor union is composed mainly of employees formed autonomously for the main purpose of maintaining and improving blah, blah, blah. I just said that before. So they can organize one freely at any time with a minimum of two members. With that said, this is where I'm not going to go too into this, but you can do collective bargaining. You can take care of unfair labor practices. Unions, some people are really against them. I don't know why. I guess I don't know enough about them, but yeah. Anyway, I've considered it. I'm too exhausted all the time to actually lead a labor union for my company. But anyway, it's possible. But then there's this article on here about a dude who, is it on here? Did I lose it? I think I lost it. There's an article on this website about a dude who decided to start a labor union for his company. Where is that case? He decided to start a labor union. Let's trip over to this. And his company, they threatened to kill him. And he got this, listen to this, he got this on tape of them threatening to kill him. And then they changed the locks on his apartment. That's another case of that actually happens. Just changed the lock on his apartment and fired him randomly without any real reasons. I think that's the story. And I think he ended up winning the case against them. I don't know what he won. I didn't read that far. But yeah, so a guy tried to start a labor union in Japan. His company threatened to have him assassinated. So Dan, we might want to rethink that idea. Even if we were able to, I'm not sure that it would be the best idea. I mean, he got away with it in the end. He's not dead, but, assassination is a thing here. What was that? What was that story? The news, some dude was driving in his car, and a guy in a motorcycle drove by and shot him like 5 bullets, and 3 or 4 of them hit him, and he died. And the police said, he may have been a trained assassin. Maybe. Understatement of the century. But that's what Japan does with bad news. I can't find the article. That's fine. It's on that website. The link's in the description. It's the first one there. So you want to... so all the links to everything I've been talking about, they're right down in the description there. Definitely read through it. It's really interesting, especially if you ever want to come to Japan. You should definitely know this stuff before you come here, because it's the Trills case. I found it finally. it's definitely worth knowing because you will be taken advantage of if you don't know it. They've actually got articles on this website about I don't want to be assassinated. Yeah, me neither. Preferably not. So there's articles on here about specific companies. One is about the company I used to work for, and it talks about how difficult it can be and how they can be a little bit overwhelming to work for. So there's lots of interesting stuff like that. This is the one I was talking about, the Trills case, about the guy in the summer of 2004, an employee of Trills, a private ALT outsourcing company in Saitama Prefecture, was actively organizing other Kanto area ALTs into the Tokyo General Union's predecessor, the National Union of General Workers, Tokyo Nambu. He thought as a professional language teacher that ALT working conditions were interfering in his ability to teach professionally. In the rush to privatize ALT jobs in the Japanese education system, it is common for companies not to provide national health insurance pay statements, nor pay for work in August. Yeah, that doesn't even happen if you work like directly for the state or prefecture. They don't pay you for August because you're not working, but still. Further, in general, a common management practice is to harass employees and compel one to rat out others in exchange for job security. Yes, power harassment. That is a big one here. I don't know if I'm ready to get into that one yet. I feel strongly about power harassment, and it's really common. I know Yuki's experienced it a lot. A lot of people at my school have experienced it, and it makes me a little angry. So I'm not ready to talk about it yet. But in July 2004, the employee actually threatened to kill the employee. The employer actually threatened to kill the employee, which the employee happened to record on tape. How do you happen to record that on tape? That's just, I feel like I should. Oh wait, I do have a recorder with me everywhere. It's my phone. I feel like I should record everything. How do you catch that? That's awesome. The company further threatened and harassed the employee, but he continued to work as per his contract. What a legend. And as within his rights as a tenant, the employee changed the locks of his subleased company apartment and prepared for more harassment. Oh, he changed his own locks. Okay, that's good. The employer finally stuck a note into his apartment door saying that he was dismissed due to a rumor that he had done something wrong in a foreign country. Yeah, it's a whole nother rant. I promised my coworkers that I was going to do a video on power harassment. I told them it was going to be in Japanese, but... Whoa, Kevin Abroad! Hey, how you doing, man? Good to see you here. Kevin Abroad, he's a polyglot, and he's learning Japanese right now. He just finished 2,200 kanji, and he's like 10 subscribers away from 1,000. So, dude, subscribe to him right now if you're not yet, because he needs 1,000 subscribers. And I want to help him get there. So yeah, thanks for being here, Kevin. We're talking about workers' rights in Japan. So I know you're going to be here in 7 months. So you're not going to be working, but, might be interesting. So the employer finally stuck a note into his apartment door saying that he was dismissed due to a rumor that he had done something wrong in a foreign country. Of course. You're so sweet. When the employee denied the claim and refused the dismissal, the employer threatened to send the police after him. Of course, the employer sent more threatening letters to the employee in the next week and then broke the new lock off the employee's apartment and left a note in his door saying he had done so. I guess the employer? What? When the employer reported the break and entered to the police, the employer claimed that they thought the employee was in fact dead and rotting away inside the apartment, even though they had been in email correspondence with him and leaving him notes at his apartment. The police were baffled by the actions of the company owners, yet were reluctant to get involved despite written evidence that the employer had indeed forced the door. And what about this recording of murder threats? Whatever. A week later, on September 8th, Trills refused to attend collective bargaining with the union, blah, 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 blah. Just this goes on and on and on. They kept threatening him more and more. Was there a happy ending? I don't know. Let's skip to the end. Here's I don't know. You guys might have to read through this one. It's pretty long, but I think it all worked out sort of, but this is the most important line right at the end. Employers will get away with anything if employees do not organize and fight for their rights. But this is often the source of the problem. Migrant and foreign workers do not know what their rights are. Please check our website and read the law and know your rights. And watch this video if you're here and you haven't watched it all yet, because it's important to know these things. Just quickly, I really want to know if this guy got through this whole thing okay. Collective bargaining with the union later in the month. The labor relations mediated session. Blah 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 blah. They shut off the employees' gas, water, and electricity. The union followed with holding a demonstrative leafletting outside the company office. By the second mediation session, the union branch had been formed. Another employee had been threatened with a dismissal, became secretary general. Oh my goodness. The company retaliated by threatening him with 10 pages of invalid work rules with such demands as requiring employees to be available for work in the wee hours of the morning and permitting one teacher to make pay deductions from fellow teachers. Woohoo! They held a press conference. Yeah. The employer broke down and indicated the employee would be reinstated. Why would you want to work for them again? He worked for them again. I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this guy. Anyway. Yes. Subscribe to Dan too. He just hit 600. I am, because Twitter is apparently amazing. I didn't start using Twitter until a couple months ago. And yeah, you know too much about people you've never met. It's pretty entertaining. But yeah, sorry if I sound like a stalker. Nimbo, thanks for the sub. You're welcome. I'm about to watch the Pikachu ice cream video. The Pikachu ice cream video is fun. My students the very next day brought in like a bunch of cups from the Pikachu ice cream, which I thought was hilarious. Looks like he got a 1.4 million yen. Oh, that's good. Only about 13,000 USD. Yeah, he should have got more. In America, I think he would have gotten more. But thank you for reading to the end there, because I was just, my eyes are starting to hurt from reading all this, and I've been talking for like an hour. Thank you for listening to my rambling for so long, everyone. I do enjoy Twitter. Started like 6 months ago or so. Yeah. I've tried to do it like 5 times in my life, and I just never understood it. And then this time I actually started talking to people, and I realized that it's a lot of fun. Now I'm on there way too often. I think Yuki would agree. It's a little bit too much. No? Maybe not. Anyway. So yeah, guys, it's important to know your rights, and not just if you work in Japan. I mean, you should know your rights for working wherever you work in the world. I mean, I know poor countryside Limbo, her state doesn't provide any laws for breaks. She doesn't get breaks in her country unless the employer decides it's necessary. That's unfortunate, and I don't know. Maybe that's what voting is for, but yeah. I very much enjoy the food porn going on your Twitter. Oh my god. Let's just get away from all this like bad stuff, like this stuff that makes me annoyed, and talk about that. There's this Sholompor, which is like a dumpling restaurant in town. It's a Singapore restaurant. And they used to sell like different noodles and Sholompor, which is like a type of dumpling with soup inside of it. I guess soup dumplings? I don't know. Now they only have dumplings. Like, they got rid of all the noodles and stuff and just decided to make a bunch of different flavors. So we went in there was like 9 different flavors, 8 different flavors of dumpling, and we're just like, we want all of them, just all of them. And the person was like, the waitress was laughing. She's like, what, seriously? Nobody does that. Everyone else around us had like 2 little salads and like 1 thing of dumplings. We just got every single one, and then we picked our favorites and got more. Oh my god, they're so good. There was like miso soup dumplings, cheese soup dumplings. There was yuzu, which is like a sour, almost grapefruity, citrusy type of one. The regular one is amazing too, but there was also ginger and shichimi, which is like a local spice here in Nagano. It's awesome. And what else was there? Cheese. There was ginger. There was curry. There was a curry one. My favorite was miso. Miso was good. I could have eaten way more of those. So yeah, amazing food here. But yes. So thanks for joining me today, guys. Loving the dumpling talk. Yes, so good. My god. And a beer. I think I might have a beer after this one too. But anyway, there's lots of harassment. There's more stuff on here. Just really interesting stuff that you should be aware of before you ever work in Japan, and even in your own country. You know, learn about your rights, because you can get them. I live in the middle of nowhere. I can't find them. Yeah. My best experience in Japan was the Korean barbecue. Huh. Korean barbecue in Japan was your best experience. I mean, yeah, It's much more flavorful than most food in Japan. Oh, look. This was just delivered to me. Hand delivered. Say cheers to everyone. No, it's fine. It's fine. Food is. Let's talk about. I've talked about this crap for an hour, so we can jump on to other things. Yeah. This was just hand delivered to me. Wonderful.
You drink that.
This is a local beer. It's a Belgian white, made in Karuizawa.
Yes.
Karuizawa Kogen. Karuizawa Kogen beer. So Karuizawa is it's a pretty famous town. It's got a huge outlet mall in Nagano. It's about an hour or two from here, maybe like 45 minutes by bullet train. But they make beer, a Belgian white that was just hand delivered to me. So kanpai, everyone. I think I'm gonna break away from these work talks and just have a beer. You need to teach me how to set up your live stream. It looks fab, and you're streaming with your camera. Freaking out. Sorry. Yeah, I'm using my actual DSLR to stream, not my webcam, so that helps a lot. I will definitely get to you on how I set it up. It was a little bit of Photoshop, a little bit of coding for the chat and stuff. Yeah, but it's fun. But anyway, what was I talking about? Beer. I was talking about beer. Korean barbecue in Japan is dope. My best experience. Yep, now I'm craving dumplings. I live in the middle of nowhere. Yeah, it's hard to find good Japanese food over in the States, especially when you live in the middle of nowhere. I live in a little tiny town in New Jersey, and they've started to get some more, like, ethnic foods. Mostly Spanish foods and fast food. But there is one Japanese restaurant, but it's written by... It's definitely not run by Japanese people, because there was, like, decorations of the wall in just hiragana. And the hiragana... I looked at it a couple years later when I'd actually learned to speak Japanese. Like, there was a picture from my family went there, and there's just these hiragana on the wall behind us, and I thought it looked so cool at the time, but when I learned to read it, it just said, in the middle of the restaurant, konnichiwa, just said hello. Like, that was the decoration on the wall of the restaurant. Like, the main decoration was just hello in Japanese. That's it. You know, most Japanese places here, they have, like, really cool kanji that has, like, such deep meaning and stuff. Nope, this restaurant, just, hello. That was great. But dumplings, yeah, I've never really had dumplings in America. Certainly not good ones. Nothing like this. I'd never had Singaporean food until I went to this restaurant, and I'm addicted. So anyway. So that's all I wanted to talk about today. I think there was probably more talking about... Maybe I'll talk about power harassment someday. I promised my coworkers I would do a video about it in Japanese, but I think that might actually get me in some serious trouble, because I'd be implying some things. Fortunately, the person who was the biggest concern in my life with power harassment at my current company left. They went to a different school recently, and that was I hate to say it because I actually liked the person until they started harassing everyone around me, but it was a good day. So cheers to that, everyone. So thanks for coming, Kevin. Thanks for coming, Dan, and hanging out for the whole time. And thanks for coming, Countryside Limbo. I think it's Molly. Thanks for anyone else who's here watching. I know Yuki's been watching the whole time, and, you know, she's had a lot of issues at work, too, and I'm sure she could talk about that for hours on end if I gave her the time. But, yep, earn your rights. Drink beer when you get a chance. I don't know. Anyway, so that's all I'm going to talk about for tonight, unless you guys have any questions. Let's just jump over to this little cool thing that I made, because this was fun. Japanese Q&A. Does anyone have any questions about Japanese? Oyasumi. Yes, it is time to go to bed. Tomorrow's actually a national holiday, so I have off, but poor Yuki has to go into work because she works flex schedules. So that's one thing that I didn't talk about really quickly. There's different types of scheduling here. You can do flex scheduling, which means 1 week you might work 30 hours, the next week you're 50. That's okay as long as the month averages out to 40 hours a week. I want that. I want to do that. I want to be able to schedule my weeks, because right now I work Saturdays at least once or twice a month. Don't get paid the overtime for it. Don't get to go home early. It's just considered my normal working hours. So I'm definitely working an average of 45 to 50 hours a week, but not getting paid for the overtime. I think flex hours would be a good idea. Anyway, talk to your companies if you're not getting what you want. Yuki works flex hours, but she's the only one that can do her job, so she works way more than she should. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. This has been Tokini Andy, I guess. If nobody has any questions about Japanese or work or anything, I'm going to sign off for tonight and enjoy this wonderful beer. I want to mention I'm not sponsored by this company. I wish I was. It would be awesome. I don't even want the money. I just want free beer. Can I get in trouble for drinking on stream? I should have thought about that. Anyway, oyasumi nasai. Thanks for watching, everyone. Talk to you next time. I'm going to have to catch up on your Japanese videos. Yes, please do. Whenever you get a chance. Thanks again. Free beer, please. Yeah, see ya. See you next time. I'm streaming every Sunday. I don't know if I'll be doing morning. I know the votes on Twitter were for morning, but I've been having a lot of festivals recently. Last night's festival, I thought it was going to be over by 11. They actually asked me to come record it. So I was basically working. I had to record the whole thing. I keep saying I'm going to go, and then I start talking again. But yeah, the festival went till 3 in the morning. 3 in the morning. They were doing like skits and shit. All right. Anyway, that's it. More later. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.